All right, folks, Vitek here from Wani. With us today, we have one and only Ivar of Enslaved. How are you doing today?
Doing very fine, thank you. It's a nice rainy day in Bergen, and that's how it should be.
As always. So, the next chapter of Enslaved in the form of E will be, released in the next 10 days. I'm sure you guys must be super excited to see how the fans would respond to this album, when you think of the amazing catalog of Enslaved in the past.
Yeah, it's very exciting, and the strange thing maybe is that you should think that you get more used to it, having releases after when you do your 14th, but quite the contrary, because it's always something that can surprise you in the reactions or whatever, and every album is very different. So the experience of releasing it is thereby very different. And I think especially now with this album, we feel that we really made a big step for the band and everything. So it's really exciting to see how the world reacts, if they react like we've done ourselves.
Lovely. That's really great to hear. Ivor, before we actually talk about the album, I've had this question for a while. I've been listening to you guys for close to 7 to 8 years now. And when I look at the bands that have been going on for more than 2 decades, there are bands out there who somehow fall into a lull after some time. But when it comes to Enslaved, you guys continue to move forward. You guys are pushing yourselves to make new, unique music. And as influential as you guys are, it's very clear to me as a metalhead that you guys are still the leaders in your field. There's no path that you follow. You just make one for yourselves.
It is, yes. I think we feel really privileged to have a band in that situation. It's been going so long that it was quite nightmarish to feel stagnated in the band and still feeling that you have to keep going. And the way that you do that is just to go and rehash old glories, so to speak. And I understand when people sort of quit, then that's more respectable, I guess, than doing something that you don't want to do. For us, it's just easy. There's just so much inspiration, and I think it comes down to our relationship with music ourselves and how we follow music with interest, collect music. There's a lot of different music interest in the band, different genres and so on. So there's always a sort of an ongoing discussion about music around us, and it's always been like that. And our ambition was very easy from the beginning. We were very young, 13 and 17, when Little started, and the ambition was just to make our own favorite music, which would be sort of a collection of all our musical tastes and try and squeeze it into one thing. And it's still the same thing. It's just a bigger machinery around it, and more people listening to it today. But we're still the same geeks, who wants to pay tribute to our heroes and at the same time try and make a humble contribution to the progression of music and metal.
Absolutely, absolutely, totally agree with that. I love how keeping the aggression, the progressive side of Enslaved in mind, but I love how there are deeper meanings in your lyrics as well. The approach you have when it comes to writing lyrics, and how the entire the instrumental sections, the music that goes so well with it. It is, there's a great concept in it, and it feels as there's an interaction. It's like a reflection of our lives, the relationships we have had. It's a culmination of everything that you have put on this album, and there's a personal touch to it as well. Is that something that you feel about when you're writing these songs, or it's just a preconceived thought that we're going to write something on this basis? How does it work for Enslaved?
It's a mixture of let's say that you have a framework in a sense that's been there from the beginning with this relationship with the mythology and esoteric side of the Norse history and culture. And then I said there would just been a gradual increase of our own sort of input from our own lives into this. To begin with, I guess it's the same for a lot of people who become interested in mythologies and mysticism, is that you begin with reciting a lot of what you're reading, and then I guess it's like can be compared to a student's path through higher education, that you begin to write your first tasks, your first papers is to sort of retell what you have read. And then as you go along and get closer to your PhD or whatever, it becomes more of a personalized, what you think about this particular thing, or how it relates to today and so on. And you develop thesis and so on. You have to, I guess the cool difference is that in art, things are more allowed. You don't have to defend it against other academics and so on. But I think it's definitely that that has been the case, that it's become more of a personal touch for ourselves. It's mirroring our own lives, and we're using this mythology in the runes and the esoteric side as sort of that. That's the alphabet, and that's the tools, but the expression is more and more ourselves, I would say. Yes.
Awesome. That's really great to hear. And I love how the song Storm Sun is, how wisely you guys use every moment, even though it's the longest track on the album with under 11 minutes in length. It's perfect to see how the extreme metal bliss and the complex progressive nature of your music has been embraced on this track. When I heard the last album, I kind of felt it was a bit more laid back as compared to the 2012's RIT I heard. So, and E somehow follows in a similar manner. There are parts that are heavier, and then there are parts which are sound like a logical extension of In Times. Is that something that is more like a next step of what happens after In Times?
Yeah, I think it's inevitable for us, since we work so in such a intense flow with the music, that we go all the time constantly writing, rehearsing, recording, or being on stage. And I guess sometimes both. We even go sometimes take a break from the studio and go to play some live shows. Everything is a continuous flow. So I think it's only natural that it will become a bit of a continuation. But I try with the years to become more and more aware that each album should have its life on its own, in a sense. That once an album is done and released, that's sort of a chapter that's gone. And it's not only to make the new one original that I try to think like that, but it's also almost out of respect for the previous one, that once it's closed, sort of. I don't want to spend the next album trying to correct, sort of, or to perfect the previous one. Because if you start in those cycles, you sort of you never finish. Everything will just be one continuous piece. And I really like the idea of having separate works. Sometimes it's natural. I think we have some albums that are quite almost seamless pairs, in a sense, like Isa and Rune. For me, feels like two albums that are very connected and so on. But now I feel that we're in the time of Enslaved, where the albums are. I want to have them divided, and I try to do that. But some leakage is impossible, because with these albums, you live, dream, and work with the same 7-8 songs for 2-3 years. First making them, recording, and then on the road. So it's some of it's got to get stuck in there, I guess.
Absolutely, man. I agree. I want to talk about this track called Feathers of O. So, that this is something that has this wonderful jazzy notes on it, and it kind of builds up really on a slow bass, and at time there are vocals that are entirely sung clean. I mean, it even comes to nearly spoken words at it. Now, this is a song that is very interesting probably in the recent years of Enslaved, and I'm sure fans would want to dig into it and listen to it very closely for years to come. It's got this great, makes me feel like more of a jazz metal sort of a hybrid. than anything approaching the black metal sound. To say the to put it that way, I love how this song it's completely different than what I hear Enslaved has done in the recent years. Is that something that has happened because of the inspiration, the influences of you and the other guys have just to bring in a diverse sound into the Enslaved's territory?
It's interesting. We were waiting for the first person to note that it was the song was completely clean vocals. It was. I think this is around the 90th interview for the album so far, and you're the first one to notice that. And it's quite fun because the song is so strange in its structure that people maybe are not noticing that the harsh vocals are gone. And we didn't really think about it before after it was done. It was Jutle who first said, "Hey, there's no extreme vocals on this song," and we thought, okay, that's strange, but it's fine. It fits the song, and I think you're right in the, if not directly jazz, it's definitely inspired by bands that have a lot of jazz influence. I would say that maybe Newer Day King Crimson is a big inspiration for the song. The kind of building in sort of more of a percussive way of thinking with the guitars also, and thinking more in terms of repetitive of patterns more than the classical riff maybe. And also writers like Philip Glass, his work is something that was inspiring for parts of the song on how this how the patterns is together, all of the band forming sort of one riff instead of thinking that we have a riff that's being followed by a drum and bass section and so on. So it was quite a liberating track to write, both because it's written with a different frame of mind than most songs are written, and also because of the dynamics. The song is quite straightforward in its structure. It's got more sort of parts, and then there's the development is within the parts instead of the parts forming the development, if that makes any sense.
That's really great to hear.
So definitely very inspiring to like that, and feel that we came a long way with it, and also it creates a different setting in the studio because it's a different way of measuring success in a sense. Because normally instead of normally playing things measurement of success, and now it's more like playing them right the correct way in a sense.
Hakon has joined the band now as a keyboardist as well as the clean vocalist, and I'm sure the longtime fans of Larsen would be thinking how this is going to sound on this album. And my first impression were that this guy can has his vocals soar effortlessly and cleanly blends with the music. In fact, I this is my observation that he sounds somewhat little bit similar to Larsen's vocal, but when we have large shoes to fill in, I feel that this guy has admirably done it. I mean, I'm sure that it's going to be a hard time for any honest fan of Enslaved to have an issue with his work on this album. This guy's done a fantastic job.
Yeah, thank you on behalf of Håkon, and I think we were really lucky when we made when we found the guy, because we had no idea how. We have only known him for his keyboard work in a different band called Seven Impale from Bergen, a prog band where he's playing keyboards. So when we asked him, he told us that he's also singing, but not in that band. So we went to the studio for a weekend and tried out with some classic Enslaved songs, and we were quite surprised by what you're mentioning, that it's quite similar in character to an expression to how one vocals, and I was I guess that's just perfect, and we went for it, and efforts in the studio were very, very admirable. He worked like a total champion all the way and really involved the rest of the band. He said, he had an idea, but he said what he wanted to do was to do it in collaboration with the band to make sure that he wants to be good and shine like a star like everyone else, but he wanted to also be part of the team. So the entire recording was done with everybody present, so he could get their feedback and sort of try and learn how we think about things.
So yeah, Ivar, once again, thank you so much for spending some time. Always a great time having a chat with you. I love the record, and I hope once the album releases, every fan you get, your existing fan base increases. So does the new fans of Enslaved. So thanks once again for writing such great music.